Here's a quick poll. What would you say makes us human? What makes you human? What distinguishes us from other creatures? Well, some people have said, oh, yeah, we laugh. We think, we love, we have faith. Lisa Marder, in an article on thoughtco.com, says it's particularly challenging to name all of the distinctly human traits or reach an absolute definition of what makes us human for a species that's as complex as ours. So there are many things that make us human. But here is a list of at least 11 distinguishing features of our species. Firstly, our larynx. It's lower down in our neck, and so it gives us an opportunity to have air pass over it and connected with a bit of the brain that makes speech happen. We are the only creatures on the planet that can speak. Well, I don't mean mimic like a parrot. I mean speak, produce understandable, continuous, long sound. The next, believe it or not, is our shoulder. The way our shoulder is attached is different from any other arthropod. No, they're spiders. It's different. It's connected in such a way that we can toss, we can throw, we can pitch, we can catch, we can dance, we can do star jumps. Then there's our hand and that amazing opposable thumb. I heard a story once about two Russians who'd been brought up to be atheists who became God-fearing believers, and people asked, how did that happen? And they said, well, we are sculptors. And one day we said to each other, isn't it amazing that we can sculpt like this, and it's only because we have an opposable thumb to grab the chisel and the hammer. And they gradually got the idea that something or someone had made them like that and distinguished them with an imagination to go with it. And so they started to believe in the opposable thumb maker until some people came along and said from the Orthodox Russian Church, oh, his name is God. And so they began to believe. But it is amazing that we have this amazing ability to be so amazing. And then there's our naked, hairless skin. Then the standing upright and what they call bipedalism, being able to walk upright, standing straight up and taking a stride. This will make you laugh. The blushing response. Charles Darwin said that blushing is our most peculiar and our most human of all expressions. Number 7, religion and awareness of death is universal. You may not like God, you may not like religion, but the crazy thing is, for thousands of years, everybody in every culture and society has had some kind of religion and some kind of deeper faith in a being above and beyond, or beings above and beyond. That's human. Don't see your dog saying his prayers, do you? Then here's a bit of a hidden one. It's our FOXP or our FOXP2 gene. And that's critical for our development of normal speech and language. Chimpanzees have got it. And as far as anthropologists have worked out, Neanderthals had it, but nobody else. And chimpanzees can't do anything with their FOXP2 gene because they don't have the right larynx or the right bit of the brain. And speaking of brains, number 9, we are distinguished by our amazing brain. Another amazing thing. It's bigger than any other creature's brain in comparison with the size of their noggin. And it's so brilliant in the things it knows because of number 10, our mind. That's our imagination, creativity and forethought. And all sorts of geniuses are digging around in brains to try and find out where forethought lives, where hope lives, where faith lives, and where stories go when we hear them. And that brings me to the last one, number 11. You guessed it. The most distinguishing feature of all our distinguishing features, hundreds of them probably, but out of these 11, the biggest one is the ability to tell stories. No other creature on the planet tells stories. Never have, never will. Now, long before you were born and well before I can remember, humans were telling stories. Mostly throughout history, they've been able to do rudimentary storytelling before they were 2 years old. I'll give you an example. The lovely Christine and I were babysitting a 20-month-old grandchild and heard a scream from the dining room. So we rushed to see if he was seriously hurt. You know, grandparents can get in trouble for that. And there he was, tapping his head, bawling his eyes out. Then after some kisses and cuddles, you know what I mean, he pointed to a chair and toddled over to it, pointing at the seat and tapping it while he kept on crying. Without words, he was telling us he'd hurt his head by falling off the chair. We have such a compulsion to relate to each other with stories. Dogs don't have that compulsion. Cats don't. Parrots, kangaroos and emus don't. Nor do the really smart creatures like dolphins. Here's what I'm leading up to. In the 80s, I worked with some industrial psychologists who won enormous contracts with top 500 companies. They sent me in to direct training programs. But before I left the office, the boss would always say, "Now remember, Colin, no stories, none of your fluffy stuff. These are executives. They don't want fluffy stuff. They want meat and potatoes. So give them some good solid stuff." Well, haven't I been fascinated as many of those companies dried up, were bankrupted, and even in the case of top banks and insurance companies that didn't want fluffy stuff, they faced huge ramifications in the last few years at Royal Commissions. The news reports of HIH, Lehman Brothers, Volkswagen, BP and other Wall Street giants have held us in thrall for years ever since. Question: could their failure be traced back to their lack of soul, their paucity of sensitivity, their cold detachment from the human condition? Obviously. And could those factors in turn be traced back to their disdain for the influence of story, where they would not allow themselves or their employees to hear something that would teach them how to have compassion, sense danger, to be wary of foolish risk, to be alert to the needs of others instead of themselves? You tell me. Yes, thank you. I still meet meeting planners and company leaders who tell me storytelling belongs in the nursery. Others tell me they wouldn't want to look soft telling stories themselves. Well, think about this. You'd think someone was mad if they declared, "Oh, I'm not going to use all my 11 features of my humanity. My shoulders, for example, I'm going to use them because they're for kids, throwing and catching balloons." Another one might say, "Talking is infantile. You'll never hear me talking because I'm not going to be a kid going goo-goo gaga in a pram. I'm an adult." And only a complete fool would say, "There's no place for an opposable thumb in my life. I'm a grown adult and I can do everything I need to do with one finger and pay someone else to do the rest." I think I've said that in another episode. Someone would be sent away for therapy if they said, "I will never use my imagination or my mind for anything ever again because it's for weaklings and sissies." Yet that's what I hear people saying about storytelling. "I'm in business, so storytelling is of no value to me. My people mostly need a good kick up the pants and they only need data, facts and information, not wussy-looking stories." Some say, "I can't tell stories to save myself." "I don't know any stories," says another. And yet, here it is, one of the most delightful and intriguing features of being human, and we bore ourselves with texts, memos, social media, drivel, pie charts, tables and deadlines. By the way, if you'd like to dig deeper into storytelling, so if you look at thecolinpearce.com/blog, you'll see when the next masterclass opens and get yourself registered, even express your interest long before it opens. Now, meanwhile, remember, storytelling works. Let it do its job.